Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Council meeting, the 20th of March 2025. Joe, can you do the evacuation procedure, please?
If the continuous alarm sounds, you must evacuate the building and proceed to the assembly point. From this room, you follow the green running person signs to the exit, using either the marble staircase at the end of the building nearest to Bath Abbey or the main staircase. Please do not use the lifts. The assembly point for this building is in Orange Grove on the green outside Browns. There is an evacuation chair for use by disabled people who so wish in the corridor outside the Council Chamber Public Gallery. Alternatively, the area at the top of the marble staircase has been designated as a safe refuge where persons needing assistance should assemble. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Do we have any apologies for absence?
We do, yes, from councillors Alex Beaumont, Colin Blackburn, Deborah Collins, Paul Crossley, Grant Johnson, Samantha Kelly, Robin Moss, Toby Simon, Malcolm Traby and Dave Wood, and I understand Councillor Sarah Warren is going to be a bit late. Anybody else I don't know about, let me know.
Councillor Jess David said she's running a little bit late as well.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you.
Declarations of interest.
I've not received any to me, so if there's any, make yourselves known.
Doesn't look like there's any. Thank you, Joe. So, minutes of the last meeting. Do I have a proposal from the floor that they're correct? Councillor Guy, a seconder. Councillor Dando. Thank you. So, can I remind everybody to put their devices on silent or off? You've already been asked to log into your units. Thank you. So, if the mic battery light is flashing, do not swap with another unit as the camera is tracked to that councillor at that spot. Just indicate to the operator and they will quickly change it for you, but they have been fully charged before this meeting. The meeting is being webcast. Anybody that wishes not to be filmed, please let the camera operator be aware. So, to remind all members of the public and councillors to treat others with respect during this meeting. Thank you. So, urgent matters from the Chair. There is none. We will now move into the public part. Lee O'Brien.
Okay, we started? Yeah. Right, so I live in Larkhall. I mainly walk and cycle. I occasionally use a motorcycle and very rarely use a car. So my position is that traffic volumes in Bath should be managed and reduced. I agree and welcome with the decision to cancel the Camden bus gate, however. But I'm really pleased that the council are saying they're going to resurrect some plans. And I wanted to share what, for me as a resident, were learning points from the Camden proposal. And I would hope that they will be taken on board in terms of any new proposal that comes along. The first thing to say is that in order to see a copy of the WECA proposal, which was behind the funding for the Camden bus gate, I asked Baines a good number of times and didn't get a response. So I had to submit a freedom of information request to see the proposal. And it seems to me that, as a general principle, relevant information, and that certainly was relevant, should be shared with residents more quickly in future. We had to wait for that for a long time. Residents of the Walcott ward, as well as Lambridge, were pretty clueless about the busgate proposal, certainly at the meetings that I went to. And other relevant stakeholders, including Fairfield Park Health Centre, Lambridge councillors, were brought into plans very late. So I think that communication and consultation can and should be improved. There was huge opposition from the community to this proposal. I've not seen anything like that, and I've lived in the ward for over 30 years. I think there's an opportunity to bring the community together, but the way it was done did not do that. The proposals didn't seem to be based on any evidential data whatsoever. So the bus gate, to my mind, and my reading of the proposal, was a solution without any sort of evidence or data-led problem. So a huge request from me is that any proposal and plan is based on clear data and evidence. It started to feel a bit like political dogma, quite frankly, in terms of what was being proposed. The proposals would have resulted in less traffic on well-heeled, affluent roads and more on poorer roads, such as Camden Crescent and Snow Hill. I think future plans should not increase social inequality. Those proposals would have. And also there'd have been more traffic on small roads, and that's dangerous in terms of pedestrians. So I think we need to take into account safety. The biggest issue is that traffic coming into Bath flows across ward boundaries, and a major flaw in the Busgate proposal was that it entirely failed to acknowledge that. And this was an unworkable proposal because of that. So I think that a traffic plan for East Bath is required. It needs to take into account traffic flows and where traffic is coming from. A ward-based approach, which is what the Camden Busgate was, by definition will fail if you're trying to address traffic coming into Bath from the east side of the city. I see time is pressing on. Councillor Rigby has spoken about possible mini park and ride plans along the A4. That strikes me as a really good idea, and I'd really support that. And a last point, I think we need to try and manage buses in a more effective way.
Thank you, Lee. You can bring your statement to a close.
Thank you.
Thank you. Paul Standstill? Oh, sorry, I'm jumping ahead. So, group leaders, if you can identify if you have a factual question now, please. No, thank you very much. Yeah, thank you, Lee.
Thank you very much.
So, may I ask Paul to come up, please? Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Paul Stansel. I live in Bath. Our Bath is a city of villages, and over centuries, communities have grown and knitted together in mutual support. The Busgate proposal for Claremont Terrace along Camden Road could have destroyed this. Over the past few years, we've lost our local post office and a cafe. A Busgate would have made our remaining services more vulnerable. This council proposal completely ignored the interdependence of, for example, Fairfield Park Health Centre, with its 14,000 patients, and the Well Pharmacy just around the corner. The pharmacist told me that with restricted access and loss of parking spaces, customer numbers would drop and make the pharmacy unviable. We were in danger of losing vital services such as prescription refills, seasonal jabs, wellness checks and more. Had Camden Road been blocked by a Busgate, we would have lost a crucial lifeline to the RUH. Crucial for the health centre, crucial for me in 2010, crucial for my wife in 2017, for our neighbours Brian and Celia last year, for our neighbour Jean just last month, and for tens of thousands of others, not just in Bath, but in the villages and towns in its hinterland. Then there's our Claremont pub, our hairdresser, our barber shop, our home care and support agency, our children's education centre. They all provide key services based in Claremont Terrace, and they're along the eastern corridor of Bath. But no one from the council had been to consult them. After London Road, Camden Road is the main east-west classified route across Bath. A Busgate on Claremont Terrace would have rerouted traffic onto Franklin Buildings, an unclassified narrow 1 in 5 steep hill. The crossroads at the bottom is a blind junction. Every day parents and children cross it on their way to school. Vans, cars, trucks and emergency vehicles regularly get stuck. Gritting trucks can't negotiate our street. It's impassable in snow and ice. The road's surface, gutters and drains are in a terrible state. This proposal did not just break every single principle of a livable neighbourhood, it was grossly irresponsible. A single-member decision with jeopardising thriving interconnected neighbourhoods and their vital services also threatened public health and well-being. Cities are systems of organised complexity. They exhibit intricate social and spatial relationships. If the council continues to approach livable neighbourhoods as problems only in traffic engineering, and also without an overarching Bath-wide movement plan, acceptable solutions won't progress. These lessons and the community's desire for a more
Paul.
transparent
If you can bring your
process
statement to a close.
behind the Livable Neighbourhood programme all point to our urgent need for a citizens' assembly.
Thank you, Paul. Group leaders, if you can indicate if you have a factual question now, please. Councillor Guy.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I'll turn my microphone on. It's difficult to look at the microphone yourself, so I apologise, Paul. You mentioned there roads and gutters, you say, in a terrible state. Have you raised these specifically on Fix My Street or with your councillor? If not, I recommend that...
Yes, I did. John Leach was very helpful.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I don't believe there's any more factual questions. Thank you very much, Paul. Patrick Rotherham.
Good evening. I'm Chairman of the Vineyards Residents Association in Central Bath. I originally asked to address this meeting on the subject of the Camden Busgate, and we're delighted that the Council, having listened to the local community and looked at the scene, cancelled the scheme. That was very good news. There has been the suggestion of a traffic scheme for the east of Bath at some point in the future. What is needed first is a comprehensive, citywide traffic movement strategy to provide a framework for livable neighbourhoods, and also to address the aim of the Journey to Net Zero Transport Plan and the local plan to reduce traffic in the historic centre of the city. In effect, a city centre livable neighbourhood. And as I understand it, work's underway on a movement strategy. Now, in considering that, the only external constraint on Baines is the existence of the National Strategic Road Network and the National Major Road Network. And there is no SRN in Bath, and the Major Road Network comprises London Street, Bathwick Street, Lower Bristol Road and Warminster Road. And all other roads in the city are part of the local road network, and their classification is entirely under the control of Bath and North East Somerset Council. The traffic movement strategy should be based on the character of local roads and traffic movement needs, not existing road classifications. Those really should be reassessed in the light of the traffic movement plan, not the other way round. In particular, it makes no sense to treat the road through the heart of the World Heritage Site, including one of its key elements, Queen's Square, as a major through route. World Heritage Sites, we talk glibly about them, but they are, quotes, places of outstanding universal value which are so exceptional as to transcend national boundaries and to be of common importance for present and future generations of all humanity. Well, that's pretty heavy if you stop and think about it. And, ask yourselves whether Bath is really worthy of that at the moment, with heavy traffic passing right through the middle of it. Of course, all this would need to be considered as part of an overall transport plan, but one excellent preliminary step would be to declassify the A4 through the city centre. By itself, that wouldn't change a great deal, but it would be an important statement of intent and stop people saying, as they regularly do to me, that because the A4 goes through the city centre, it's got to be a through traffic route. It doesn't. It's entirely up to you. The removal of non-essential traffic from the centre of Bath would be a major public good. Good for tourism, good for the economy, and good for Bath's reputation as the custodian of a World Heritage Site, and bringing us into line with the many historic cities in Europe that have reduced traffic from their centres. So I urge you to be ambitious with the movement strategy. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Can group leaders indicate if they have a factual question, please? No? Thank you, Patrick. Alex Keane.
I am Alex Keane and speaking today as one of the co-founders of the STBG Collective, which will stop the busgate. The withdrawal of the proposal E3418 on the 18th of February should have been seen as a small win, whereas the reality has left us disillusioned. What the Camden Road busgate proposal has shown is the sad indictment on our local communities that a positive initiative was manipulated by a select few ward electorate for their betterment without any due thought of the knock-on consequences for neighbouring streets, communities and wards. In the grand scheme for Bath and North East Somerset, the Livable Neighbourhood programme should have been something to bring communities together and celebrate it. But the attention that the schemes across the city have been generating far outweigh their budget significance, which equates to approximately 0.2% of the annual council budget. We remain mystified after the aftermath of the nearly 4-year process, not understanding the motivation behind the final shortlisted scheme. The community welcomed the initial 71 initiatives put forward for the London Road and Snow Hill area, for it then to be narrowed down to a closed workshop of 28 shortlisted schemes, then down to one specific modal filter, which had previously been rejected in February 2021. The STGB group remains actively in favour of livable neighbourhoods, and one of the underlying pillars of LNs is that they should bring equal benefit for the whole surrounding community. The Camden Road modal filter proposal did not do that, and it has been shrouded in secrecy. We have zero satisfaction in the knowledge that hundreds of thousands of pounds will have to be returned to WECA, nor that the local taxpayers' match funding will have to now be written off. We have tried to ascertain through FOIs how did the Camden Road modal filter get to the final WECA funding, who made the initial and final selections at the closed workshop, itemised spending breakdowns, risk management processes, the list goes on. None have yet to be given a satisfactory answer. The whole thing is not about winning. It is about accountability to the electorate and the proper appropriation of public funding. With council tax set to increase by 4.99%, surely evaluating the strategic and financial fallouts of this scheme will assist the council to not follow the same processes on other LNs. There needs to be a unilateral approach to Bath Transport. Part of our group have been actively involved in the Transport Delivery Action Plan and Journey to Net Zero, but each time it has gathered traction, political shifts cause the pendulum to swing, rather than having some form of independent body carrying out necessary research for the betterment of Bath. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Can group leaders indicate if they have a factual question, please? Councillor Guy.
Thank you, Alex, and thank you for your statement. Are you aware that there will be no monies handed back to WECA?
I am not at this present time, no.
You are now.
No other questions, thank you. Gareth Eon? Enon, sorry.
Madam Chair, councillors, neighbours, together we are here as citizens bound by a shared vision of clean air, safe streets and strong communities. We believe in progress, we believe in livable neighbourhoods, but concurrently we believe that good intentions alone are not enough. We need good decisions rooted in evidence and fairness. Now, as a resident of Walcott, I read a variety of proposals for the Camden Road bus gate, of which I thank the council for seeing sense and stopping. On the surface, it might have seemed this scheme was progress, reducing traffic and creating space for active travel. But when you looked closer, when you truly examined it, the proposal just didn't make sense. Because the truth is, a poorly designed bus gate did not solve congestion, it simply moved congestion. It didn't reduce pollution, it relocated it. Instead of cleaner air, the bus gate would have funneled hundreds more cars daily onto Snow Hill, Fairfield Park, Lambridge, and most concerningly, London Road, a road already choked by traffic. These are all streets where families live, children walk to school, and residents breathe the consequences every day. So let's talk honestly about the consequences of this flawed concept and how we move forward. Without proper traffic modelling, without rigorous air quality studies, the proposal was not a solution, it was an illusion. The Council's own research tells us clearly that vehicle pollution is harming our residents' health, yet remarkably, the plan contained no meaningful assessment of how the displaced traffic will intensify air pollution around local schools, medical centres and homes. This bus gate, as conceived, wasn't progress. It was a gamble that could have effectively created Council-sanctioned rat running. The residents of Walcott and Lambridge deserve better. We deserve real solutions, not quick fixes. True progress means reducing traffic, not redirecting it. True progress means cleaner air for every neighbourhood, not just a select few. It means a thorough understanding of every impact and consequence before decisions are taken, not afterwards. So today I urge the Council to listen, to slow down, to step back. Let us demand a comprehensive traffic management plan for our neighbourhood, a plan built on robust independent analysis, rigorous air quality assessments, transparent finances and, above all, genuine community consultation. Because change only works when communities are heard. It only works when residents can trust the process. It only works when we acknowledge and fix our mistakes rather than stubbornly moving forward with flawed plans. Let's choose collaboration over haste, transparency over assumption, expedience, evidence over expediency. Together, we can create a neighbourhood that's not just livable, but thriving. Together, we can shape the neighbourhoods we love into places where every family, every child and every resident breathes cleaner air, walks safer streets and looks forward to a brighter future. Let's get this right. I urge you to support tonight's motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Gareth. Group leaders, can you indicate if you've got a factual question, please? No? No. Thank you, Gareth.
Thank you.
Freya Walker? Okay, we'll come back to Freya. Adam Reynolds?
Okay. Today, I want to reflect on the fact that the Council unanimously passed a Vision Zero motion in November 2023, but since then, many of you seem to have spent a lot of time opposing any road danger reduction measures that would deliver on that motion. Over the last 10 years, 2,887 people have been killed or injured on Bath and North East Somerset's roads. Of those, 46 died and 415 were seriously injured. If these were knife-related incidents, there would be widespread outrage. One of the riskiest manoeuvres on our roads is the main road, side road turn. That's why I welcomed Councillor Mark Elliott's Sydney Road Livable Neighbourhood call-in speech, reminding everyone that the Baines Livable Neighbourhood policy aims to keep through traffic off minor roads and on main roads. Research proves this approach makes minor roads twice as safe for all road users and over 6 times safer for pedestrians, without increasing danger on boundary main roads. Low traffic neighbourhoods, or LTNs, are the cheapest, most effective tool the Council has to reduce road danger. In fact, many of you filled out livable neighbourhood, low traffic neighbourhood request forms in 2021, which are the basis for the Council's current LTN programme. Throughout this speech, I've deliberately avoided using the term road safety, because road safety typically focuses on protecting the vulnerable users from poor driver behaviour for the convenience of those drivers. Road danger reduction takes the problematic driving off the road entirely, recognising that many groups in society need and require safe travel choices, particularly those who are forced to walk, wheel, cycle or rely on public transport. Children. This desire for safer, healthier, happier, greener streets is supported time and again by representative polling. It is the difference between ensuring knives are kept out of schools versus handing every child a stab vest. It's the difference between installing a modal filter on Mount Road versus installing a zebra crossing outside Round Hill Primary School, only to see a woman seriously injured in a road traffic collision on that road 6 months later. It's the difference between proposing a modal filter on Entry Hill and one on Greenway Lane to remove the accident black spots on Wellsway and Bradford Road, over 70 injuries in 25 years, and creating a safe route to school to Beecham Cliff pupils living in Coombe Down and Fox Hill, versus putting some lights on a bridge in the vain hope that people will avoid using it as a rat run. It is the difference between supporting livable neighbourhoods versus putting your name to call-ins, challenging them. There are over 20 retrospective LTNs in the City of Bath, many existing over half a century. Over 2/3 of streets in Bath and North East Somerset are already part of LTNs. There is nothing new about this. People simply want safer streets. Road danger reduction is a basic moral issue that can no longer be ignored. I urge councillors to do the right thing and to continue to support the Livable Neighbourhood Policy Programme.
Thank you.
ChatGPT ruined this.
Group leaders, do you have a factual question? Can you indicate now? No? Thank you, Adam. Jackie Head.
I wish to strongly support the motion proposed by the Liberal Democrats for the Council to take a proactive stance against any further expansion of Bristol Airport. I am not a Liberal Democrat. This is not party political. It should concern every colour of councillor in the room. I live in Baines in the Chew Valley, 9 miles away from the airport, and as I'm under the flight path, I am disturbed by night flights, very aware of the impact on local road systems, with villages clogged with through traffic and illegal parking caused by inadequate road structure, a massive under-ambition on transporting people to the airport by public transport, and ridiculously inflated parking prices at the airport. However, my key objections to the airport expanding are not about these local impacts, but rather the wider impact of expanding aviation in a climate crisis, and the many false claims that are made about the so-called benefits of expansion. I'm sure some in this chamber will have been wooed by the economic arguments for expansion, from tourism, new jobs, the economy. Surely you might say the country needs economic growth, and airport expansion has to be good. Sadly, I fear you've been taken in by the glossy presentation made by the airport, and it's not surprising as they ploughed huge amounts of money into that. However, I would like you to look closely at their master plan, and I would like you to compare and contrast it to the alternative master plan put forward by Bristol Airport Action Network. They claim there'll be economic benefits. We claim there won't, and we have evidence behind us. Despite significant growth in passenger numbers over the last 2 years, there has been no net growth in air travel for business purposes since 2007. So the supposed benefit of air travel to assist business growth is a myth. Airport expansion is driving outbound leisure traffic with no direct economic benefit to the UK and significant economic downsides. The UK's travel spending deficit ballooned to over 14 billion in 2023, starving domestic leisure and tourism industries, and particularly the UK's wider regions, of cash. For every one tourist Bristol Airport flies into the area, it flies 5 out of the area to spend their money abroad. But what about the jobs, I hear you say? The airport's made extravagant claims about jobs, but in the past, they haven't upheld what they've promised. In 2026, they put forward in their master plan that the fact that they would have 3,800 jobs in the airport by 2015. That's 1,500 jobs more than they had at the time that they claimed this.
Thank you, Jackie. If you can bring your statement
Actually,
close.
they only put forward 500. They overrepresented it by 300%. Do not believe them. Do not be party political. Vote for this motion.
Thank you, Jackie. Can group leaders indicate if they have a factual question, please? Nope. Thank you. Steve Clark? No? Louise Leader? Oh, sorry. He is on his way. Thank you. Steve Clark.
Thank you. Many thanks for this opportunity to speak to you in support of the important motion that's coming before this chamber concerning Bristol Airport. I'm Stephen Clark of Bristol Airport Action Network. We're a community group which represents the residents of the area impacted by the ongoing expansion plans. So residents are extremely angry to discover that there are now new plans to expand again, even before the impact of the expansion granted in 2024 have been worked through. Effectively, the airport wants to be half as big again as it is at the moment. A recent questionnaire has been completed by nearly 800 residents, and the results are rather North Korean in scale. 93% object to more expansion, and 94% agree with the statement, "I think my local elected MP and councillors should object to these expansion plans." So just to be clear on one issue, our campaign group's not trying to stop people having their annual holidays or close down the airport, but we strongly believe that Bristol Airport is big enough. The current position, Bristol Airport planning permission to go to 12 million passengers a year from 10. This was approved by the Planning Inspectorate after being rejected by the local planning committee. It was approved despite overwhelming opposition from residents. All the local councils, the local MP, WECA, and many of the 11,000 plus residents who responded to the consultation objected. It was over 80% objected. The airports have only just started to use this extra capacity, but despite this, they're applying to expand by another 3 million passengers. If the expansion is allowed to go ahead, impacts would include greatly increased noise envelope, huge congestion on the already crowded A38, increased problems with parking off airports, a huge impact on local nature, and of course, the carbon impact. The expansion would mean over 1 million tonnes of extra greenhouse gases. And expansions of airports like Bristol, and believe it or not, there are 20 other airports in the UK looking to expand, would make it impossible to keep to our net zero target. So what would Bristol Airport, if they were here, if Dave Leeds, the Chief Executive Officer, was here, what would he say? He'd talk about jobs, which Jackie has talked about. He'd talk about more efficient aircraft, and he'd talk about sustainable aviation fuel. Let's consider that for a moment. The industry themselves agree it's going to be a tiny percentage of the fuel used for a very long time. In other words, it's simply not going to happen. In conclusion, we would ask that you support this motion, you use your political weight to ask WECA, the other local councils and the local MPs in the region to support residents.
Thank you. Can group leaders indicate if they have a factual question? No? Thank you, Steve. Louise Leader, please.
Good evening, my name is Louise Leader and I'm Chair of the Parish Council Airport Association, whose membership includes 25 parish councils, 2 town councils, including Keynsham, and represents over 70,000 residents in Baines and North Somerset. We have worked opposing the previous application for the airport to expand to 12 MPPA, and we supported Barn in their appeal. The Committee on Climate Change states that there should be no airport expansion. On the 21st of January this year, the New Economics Forum reported that approving the expansion of Heathrow, Luton and Gatwick airports would wipe out the complete benefits of the government's Clean Power Plan within 5 years of expected operation. It is not acceptable for aviation to be excluded when considering climate change. Here we have an ambitious regional target for net zero CO2 by 2030 and further expansion of Bristol Airport to serve up to 15 million passengers per annum is simply not compatible with this. All the top 10 UK airports, with the exception of Bristol Airport, are accessed by motorway or dual carriageway and have a direct rail link. Bristol has no direct rail link and is served only by single carriageway in both directions, and access between the A38 and the A37 to the east is by narrow and winding B roads with pinch points to single file traffic at several points. It is essential that there is the provision of a mass transit system which is not bus-based, and that a much larger proportion of passengers than the proposed 20% arrive by public transport before further expansion to 15 MPPA should be considered, as this will be 50%, i.e. an increase from the existing 10 million passengers per annum to 15 increase on already exceptionally busy and congested roads. The proposal to build extensively on Greenbuilt rather than building the third multi-storey car park, which is a condition of the airport expanding to 12 million passengers per annum, and not to consider adding a tier over the existing single-storey car park is not environmentally friendly, reduces habitats and increases flood risk to communities which already have flooding problems downstream. The government never seemed to consider the financial implications of the tourist deficit. In 2019, the UK's tourism deficit was estimated to be around 34 billion, with air travel contributing 88%. Going to 2023, this increased from 34 billion to 41 billion deficit, with UK residents...
Thank you, Louise. If you can bring your statement to a close, please.
Right. So, we support the Liberal Democrats' motion on opposing Bristol Airport expansion. The PCA does. Thank you.
Thank you. Can group leaders indicate if they have a factual question, please? No. Thank you, Louise. Jamina Alamo.
Esteemed members of the local council and fellow residents, this is not the first time you've had the president of the Students' Union sat before you. With the right commitments emerging from this evening, this could be the last. The concerning situation that students face in the private housing market in Bath has yet again shocked us as student representatives, to the point where I've chosen to come before you yet again to make a plea to action. On our 2024 housing survey, on an open comment, one of our students said, "I pay 130% of my maintenance loan in rent. This is before bills, food, transport, and other living expenses. This is by no means an isolated incident. In 2013, the average rent our students reported paying was £350 per calendar month. In 2024, that number had gone up to £600 per calendar month. This is an increase of 71.43% in only 9 years. Equally, in 2013, 67% of our students reporting having problems with their housing. In 2024, this number had gone up to 86%. This means that only 1 in every 10 students doesn't have poor living conditions in their space that they're meant to call their home. 12% of our students have reporting developing new health issues because of the condition of their house, and 35% of students say that they don't have appropriate space to study within their accommodation. Local landlords and letting agencies have been accomplices in what it is, in my opinion, the biggest crisis students at Bath face. Not only are they irresponsive, taking months to respond to simple maintenance requests that their tenants are entitled to make, but these predatory organizations make the most out of high demand for student accommodation in the city by charging extortionate prices. Members of the council, as student representatives, we do not expect you and the people in this room to fix issues in a national system that have been planned to fail students for years, if not decades. Our plea to you this evening, fellow residents of the city, is that you recognize this issue for what it is. You have near a fifth of the city's population discontent about their living conditions. Please take this call to action seriously. The people in this room can begin important conversations about placing essential council pressure and resource on raising the standards of local housing. You have the ability of demanding better conditions from landlords and letting agencies alike. And you have tonight the chance to commit to making Bath a city where your own children and grandchildren would want to study and live. We hope that you take this chance, and we are more than happy and willing to assist in whatever way we can to make this possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Group leaders, can you indicate if you have a factual question, please? Councillor Guy.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Chair. Would you be willing to meet the Cabinet for Housing to discuss this further?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I don't think there's any other factual questions. Thank you very much. Charlotte Lucas, sorry.
Good evening. She was an amazing speaker. I'm here to express deep concerns regarding the Council's new provider agreement with early years providers and its detrimental impact on our children's early education and well-being in Baines. The risks. Nurseries and childminders across our community have come together, united in highlighting the very real and imminent risks associated with this provider agreement, with regards to which the sector has not been consulted. Collectively, we serve well over 3,000 local families, and our unified voice reflects the widespread apprehension and potentially fatal risks we're expected to shoulder within our sector with less than 15 days' notice. Erosion of parental choice. Up until this point, parents could select early years settings that best suited their child's unique needs, be it enhanced SEND support, higher staff ratios or specialised learning environments. By mandating that additional charges be optional, this agreement forces nurseries to eliminate these specialised services, leading to a homogenised system that fails to cater for individual children's requirements and takes away parental choice. Compromise support for SEND children. Consider child H, who requires support beyond the provided Band B funding. Currently, our setting absorbs an additional £6,200 annually to ensure appropriate care. With 20 such children enrolled, the financial burden is substantial. The new agreement renders this level of support unsustainable, leaving vulnerable children without essential services and placing increased strain on local authority resources. Increased safety risks. Financial constraints will compel nurseries to adopt a 1:5 staff-to-child ratio for toddlers, significantly reducing supervision. This compromises safety. Impact on looked-after children. Looked-after children already facing challenges such as trauma and developmental delay rely on stable, high-quality early years experiences. The reduction in support services due to financial limitations undermines their chances. Undervaluing a female-led workforce. This one really irks me. This agreement reflects an outdated perspective that undervalues the predominantly female workforce in early years education. You can see just a tiny portion of them over there. Violation of children's rights. The UN Convention on the Rights of the Child guarantees the right to life, safety and an education that supports full potential. Conclusion. The provider agreement undermines the quality and safety of early years education.
Fantastic speech, Charlotte. Group leaders, Councillor Tim Warren.
Yeah, thank you very much. From a business point of view, is this really workable?
Absolutely not. The funding we receive for all ages of children does not meet our delivery costs. So we have always worked in collaboration with the Council to ensure we charge appropriate additional charges that act as another income stream to prop up the poor funding that is UK-wide. And that helps us remain not only sustainable but profitable, which means we can cradle support for lots of children that is actually, lacking UK-wide. We pick up a lot of that strain. That's why we do what we do.
Thank you, Charlotte. I think you've answered that question. Thank you. Councillor Hughes.
Thank you. Hi, Charlotte. So, in what ways does the new provider agreement pose a safeguarding risk to children?
Well, this is really the one we're very, very concerned about. Basically, from the 1st of April, we're expected to introduce packed lunches. Currently, many private providers, particularly those servicing families that work long hours for like an 8 till 6 day, we provide a hot lunch and all snacks and drinks on site. So we control the 14 top allergens as per the Food Standards Agency, as per Natasha's law. Now, we're told to change that straight away. And obviously with the age group we're working with, I don't know if you've ever fed a toddler, they don't stick to their areas, they reach over. You've got massive problems with choking, airborne allergens. We haven't got time to train our staff in emergency anaphylaxis. We've got children developing multi and complex allergic reactions that haven't had full diagnosis yet. And we're just saying we cannot control that, and that could be fatal.
Thank you, Charlotte. So I think Councillor Wright also has a question.
Thank you for your statement. How are marginalised children impacted by this new agreement?
So marginalised groups, be they SEND children, be they disabled children, be they children that identify as other than white. These are all groups that stand to be further impacted. Inclusion support funding, for example, will have to run, we believe, like EYE funding. We do not have the funds to allow children in with need where we have to either give a reduced ratio or one-to-one support. We won't be able to pay for the staff to do that. So that's going to need big reform.
Thank you. I think Councillor Guy has a question as well.
Thank you, Charlotte, and thank you to the fan club that you brought with you.
Plenty more.
Quick question. You're obviously, hopefully aware that this poor timing is a government measure and not a council measure, and it's something the council doesn't agree with. But the main question is, will you be willing to attend, and are you attending the early years reference group meeting next Wednesday?
I did have that email, I think, yesterday that came through, and I will be attending that. Yeah.
Brilliant. Hopefully you're as passionate there as you are here.
Will be.
Thank you, Charlotte. So I just want to check if Freya Walker has arrived. Nope. So we're going to move on to the Item 8, Annual Report of the Charitable Trust Board, and I believe Councillor Tim Ball is going to move that.
Yes, I'll be quite quick this evening. It's the Annual Report of the Charitable Trust Board. Those eagle-eyed ones, remember we had one in October last year as well. That was a catch-up of the previous year. The report we're referring to this evening actually is in the current year this year, so picks up the financial year correctly. The report is very simple. It's actually...
Tim, sorry, can I ask you just to speak into your microphone just a little bit more, please?
I apologise. I'll try and lean forward, shall I? The actual Charitable Trust Board covers the work of the Alice Park Trust solely. And the report is for you this evening for noting, and I move the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Ball. And I believe Councillor Ollie Henman is going to second that.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, welcome the report. I also sit on the Alice Park Trust subcommittee. It's been very active over the past year, as Councillor Ball has noted. I think it's important to realise that the continued investment from the Council in the park is very good value for money. It leads to much healthier and active lives for children in the East of Bath. I think it's been a good example of collaboration across councillors and also with representatives of the community, and there's a real opportunity for further fundraising over the coming year for the play park in Alice Park. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anybody that wishes to speak? No, so we will move to the vote.
What do we do now?
Yeah, well, nothing's working here.
I can't see. Where do we press? Oh, right. Before it, aren't we?
Has everybody voted that wishes to vote? Okay, it's not everybody in the room that's voted.
But if you voted, if you want to vote, then that's fine and it's unanimous.
That's carried, thank you. So we move on to item 9, Constitution from the Constitution Working Group. So we've got Councillor Sean Hughes is going to move that.
Thank you. So this is the part of the ongoing work for the Constitution Working Group. I'm sure you've all read the paper, so I'm happy to move it.
Thank you, Councillor Hughes. And Councillor Rigby is going to second that.
I'm very happy to second the motion.
Do we have anybody that wishes to speak on this? No? We'll move to the vote then. Oh, sorry. Councillor Mansell.
Yes, thank you. Because I just asked a question on this. I know Constitutional Committee is not the one that grabs everyone's imagination. But will you be looking at in the future the Keep It Local procurement policy of the council, and also a line around the budget scrutiny, as other councils do? Thank you.
Councillor Hughes, do you want to sum it up and answer that question? Oh, sorry, I've got Councillor Eleanor Jackson who wishes to speak as well.
Thank you very much, Chair. I would like to thank the committee for the work that they've done in bringing forward these changes, some of which, dare I say, I actually suggested when I was Chair of Council and found there were various procedural problems. It's really good to have everything set out clearly like this. But I have also got a question about the public speakers and whether it would be possible to get a broader and more inclusive range, because it does strike me that very many of them are Bath-centred and we're not hearing enough from North East Somerset. There is a line in the constitutional suggestions that we get a broader selection of topics and people, and I commend that.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. So I don't think anybody else now wishes to speak, so I will ask Councillor Hughes to sum it up.
Thank you. Yes, I mean, procurement is a key part of this work. If there's any specific areas you want the working group to look at, you can feed that into the group, and it will get looked at. Absolutely. So I think that covers everything. Happy to move.
Thank you. Sorry, thank you. We now move to the vote.
What do I do? Just press my little face? Yes.
Yeah, we'd normally leave the names up on the screen for everything. That's what we were saying. For everything, yeah, but it doesn't happen next time, yeah? Yeah, so that's everybody who's voted is in favour. Thank you. It's unanimous.
Thank you. This is going excellent this evening. So item number 10, appointment of the interim S151 officer, and I believe Councillor Guy is going to move that.
Thank you, Chair. Yep, very easy on this one, hopefully. S151 officer, for those who are not aware, is basically the financial officer. There's a legal requirement to have this in place. We have an exceptionally good finance team at the council, as proven with the recent budget announcements made by Mark Elliott and his team. So happy to move this appointment as written in the paper. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Guy. I believe Councillor Hughes is going to second that.
Yeah, nothing to say on that one. I'm happy to second. Thank you.
Wonderful. Do we have anybody that wishes to speak on this? So, Councillor Elliott.
Yeah, just as Cabinet Member of Resources, to have my support to the appointment. I think that Jeff Ring's an excellent officer and he'll make an excellent interim 151 officer.
Thank you, Councillor Elliott. Councillor Mansell?
Thank you. Yes, I understand what's happening here, that the job seems to be split in two. But could you explain a little bit more around the implications of this acting-up arrangement?
Councillor Elliott.
Yeah, as the appointments of the new Exec Director for Resources, we intentionally sought to not restrict the appointment to somebody who was qualified to be a Section 151 officer. You have to be have particular qualifications in accounting to be a Section 151 officer. We appointed somebody who was not qualified to be he was the best candidate but not qualified to be a Section 151 officer. It therefore requires a restructuring of the posts underneath because somebody has to take that designation who has the accounting qualification. So that's what we're doing on an interim basis, which allows Simon Parker, the new Exec Director for Resources, to take some time to consider the structure under him, which is why it's an interim appointment.
Thank you, Councillor Elliott. I do believe that was in the papers. So, Councillor Guy, did you want to summon up?
No, happy to move to the vote, Chair.
Lovely. We'll move to the vote.
That's right.
Yes, that's unanimous. Thank you very much.
That's carried. Thank you. We now move on to the appointment of Chair and Vice Chair. Councillor Guy, I believe you're going to move that?
Sorry, just to clarify, it's the announcement as an indication, it's not the appointment.
Oh, sorry, the announcement of the indication. Thank you, Joe.
Like I say, I don't have that power, Chair, but I'm happy to announce and move the Chair for next year. Exceptionally experienced councillor, and I think the whole room will agree that she'll be a brilliant appointment as Chair. I'm looking forward to that next year. Obviously, Karen, you're also amazing as Chair as well. And then we've got Sean to be moved as Vice Chair for next year as well.
Thank you, Councillor Guy. And I believe Councillor David Biddleston is going to second that.
Thank you, Chair. Happy to move that. Thank you.
Did anybody want to say anything on this? No? Oh, Councillor Warren.
Lucky to have such talent for the new Chair and designate Vice Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Warren. So we'll move to the vote to accept the recommendations for the new Chair and the new Vice Chair. Thank you.
Have you voted? Have you voted?
Okay. So that is carried with 43 in favour and 1 abstention. Thank you.
So that's carried. Right, we're going to move on to the next item on the agenda, and that's a motion from the Labour Group improving transparency and community engagement around planning gain. And I believe Councillor David Biddlestone is going to move that.
Thank you, Chair. I'll try to be brief, but I will fail, I'm afraid. We are grateful, thank you, to Councillor McCabe and our colleagues across the table for their input into the writing of this motion and their recognition of the important principles we all share. Now, this motion was originally written by a group of Labour councillors who, although our youthful good looks might make this hard to believe, have many decades of experience in parish towns and Baines Council, as well as at a regional and national level. This motion is written from a place of experience, but also a place of care, as this council and our residents face a new and uncertain period of significant development to meet government home building targets. Our motion aims to help residents and smaller local councils ensure that funds are used locally for essential projects like affordable housing, green spaces and community facilities. And it aims to help our council to show those local communities how they are benefiting from this funding. Seeing funds being used effectively will build trust and engagement, which is so important as we move through this period of uncertainty and home building. I hope we can all vote today to ensure that our residents can see more clearly how the Council manages community infrastructure levy and Section 106 funds, which are designed to ameliorate the impact of new developments. The Localism Act 2011 gives us the power to manage these funds responsibly, focusing on the needs and trust of our community. Robust processes for the money coming from planning obligations are pivotal in ensuring that developments within our community contribute effectively to local infrastructure and services. However, recent findings, both here and in our local authority and nationally, indicate a pressing need for greater clarity and understanding on how these funds are managed and might be spent. And you will be pleased to know that this motion is already fully catered for in our existing budget, having established this with our Head of Planning and with our Section 151 officer. We have a duty to transparency for our constituents to ensure that the management of CILM 106 funds reflects our responsibility as defined by that Localism Act 2011, which empowers our local authorities with greater autonomy. Transparent processes must not only uphold democratic principles but also foster community trust. In a report on the September the 15th of last year by the Home Builders Federation, it was revealed that local authorities across England and Wales are collectively holding over £8 billion in unspent developer contributions. This staggering sum includes more than £6 billion from Section 106 agreements and nearly £2 billion accumulated through the Community Infrastructure Levy. The report tells us that on average councils hold £19 million in unspent Section 106 infrastructure contributions, and this money could be better spent on essential affordable housing, green infrastructure and amenities to improve all of our local towns and parishes, especially at times when money is hard to come by. Additionally, over a quarter of these unspent funds have remained dormant for more than 5 years, accruing approximately £1.6 billion in interest. This prolonged inaction will result in inevitable delays to programmes shortly to be finalised, the renewed Baines local plans. The HBF states that by not spending the money, local residents are not seeing the benefits of local housing developments that they should be, and this may well fuel objections to future local building. Whilst these figures are national, it's important for us to consider and improve our own practices. The results of that HBF FOI show that 80 local authorities have to return Section 106 money to developers in the last 5 years. As Cabinet members here will know, I've been asking questions about Baines' own record on unspent money, and even money that has had to be returned, because last year I learned that £168,000 had to be repaid to a local developer because it hadn't been spent on the community scheme that it was earmarked for. In February last year, our own Baines internal audit team identified 3 areas of high risk on the spending of Section 106 money within timescales. We have clear guidelines in a yearly report on SIL and Section 106 money indeed, but our local town and parish councils continue to report difficulty on obtaining up-to-date information on amounts due or available. Without further robust transparency measures, we risk further money being returned to developers and missed opportunities to address pressing local needs, as illustrated above. So in the light of these points, I propose that we must do all that we can to ensure that residents can see our principles here being upheld. We must ensure that publicly accessible online platform is available and that planning gains can be easily observed, that the finances that underpin planning projects are provided with appropriate timelines, and that unspent funds are clearly observable for all of our residents. Once this has been achieved, the greatest obstacle to spending planning money game is the ways stated above, the lack of knowledge and understanding of the system by our political representatives. All of us in this chamber and our town and parish colleagues need comprehensive training in SIL and 106 to ensure that our residents receive the very best improvements for our towns and villages. For this reason, I urge us all to call for the things within the motion. I'd like to thank the officers across Baines and in the town and parishes who've given their time to making sure our original motion was in budget and realistic in ambition. I hope that you will support our motion to ensure our residents and their elected representatives are supported with information and training around the growing challenge, making the most for the community, for developer contributions. Let's all see the infrastructure improvements in our towns and parishes be the best that they can be. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Biddiston. Can I request that the timer put on, please, for the next speaker? Thank you. Thank you.
Just keep going until you stop, Dave. That's what it is.
So, I believe Councillor Matt McCabe is going to second
Was that a dig, Chair?
Thank you, Chair. In the spirit of the entente cordiale that has broken out in the Chamber just momentarily, I'm very happy to second this motion, and I'd like to thank Councillor Biddleston for the opportunity to work with him, and to Councillor Dando, whose thunder I may have stolen. There is obviously lots of complexity around community infrastructure levy, strategic SIL, neighbourhood SIL, and then also Section 106 agreements. But overall, they represent the opportunity for planning gain into our local communities. So it's incredibly important, especially in terms of maintaining trust. Trust that the planning process will deliver for existing communities, as well as creating new communities. It is therefore disappointing, even if it is a rare occurrence, to discover that monies have had to be returned to developers. It doesn't happen for SIL. If a developer doesn't pay, we take them to court. All the money goes straight into a central strategic pot, and then 20 to 25% is then handed back to the local parish or town council or the Bath SIL committee as neighbourhood SIL. Now, technically, if neighbourhood SIL isn't spent within 5 years, the money is returned, but it is returned to the central pot. It doesn't go back to the developer. So it is Section 106 agreements that we should be focusing on, because if those obligations cannot be fulfilled as per the contractual timescale, then any money has to go back to the developer, which is not a good thing. In my own ward, a Section 106 agreement was made between the council and the developer to deliver a public footpath from the development site down the hill into the village. This was a condition of the planning approval. However, when the time came, a key landowner revoked their permission, so no public footpath. And worse still, the parish council was not allowed to spend the money on any other pedestrian infrastructure improvements, and the money must now be returned to the developer. This is incredibly disappointing, and for me it raises two issues. Firstly, why are we not monitoring these Section 106 agreements? Apparently we used to, but those staff were axed some 7 or 8 years ago in a cost-cutting exercise. And now it falls to planning enforcement when they are randomly informed that something hasn't happened. Second, how are we drawing up these obligations that they are so completely inflexible? Again, I'd like to thank Councillor Biddleston for bringing this motion forward, because I'm happy to say that officers have been working on a reporting solution for the past 12 months, and I'm hopeful that we will see a prototype soon. I can also confirm that last year I asked for a review of the drafting process, and this has now been initiated. Excuse me, and I look forward to a new approach. So if Council agrees this motion tonight, it will add considerable momentum to these pieces of work. Finally, Councillor Biddleston raises the important issue of training. We can all be more effective as councillors and town or parish councillors if we have a clear idea of what we should be asking the case officer to secure as Section 106 obligations as part of a planning application. And similarly, it would be beneficial if we could better understand what we should be spending or could be spending neighbourhood SIL on.
Thank you, Councillor McKay. Councillor Hale.
Thank you, Chair. I find this very interesting, in so much as from 2010 to now, I have had 4 relatively big developments on my ward, the ward I share with Dave. I don't recollect seeing any benefit at all from any money that's come from that development. I fully understand, I don't know why it's ringing. No, turning off the boot doesn't help either. I fully understand. I would like training, because there must be a lot of money that came from those 4 developments that Keynsham South, and they are all 4 on Keynsham South, has not really seen any money which has been specifically told to be SIL or 106. So, yes, I would agree that training is vital, and whoever's got the purse strings and is hanging on to the money at the moment, perhaps they'd let me know, and we can think about something that might benefit Keynsham South. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Howell. Councillor Dando.
Thanks, Chair. Councillor McCabe will be pleased to know that he didn't steal my speech because Councillor Biddleston had most of it. So I won't repeat it. But I think it is important. We had a number of contributions today from the public speakers about trust and about taking people with them. And we know that there is going to be a phenomenal amount of development needed to meet government targets across our district over the next decade and more, and it's important that as part of that, because SIL and Section 106 is all about mitigating the impact and ameliorating what happens in communities, that people understand that development, if done properly, can bring benefits to communities and can offset negative activities by positive advantages. And this motion and the support that it's gained, I hope, across the Chamber, will go a long way towards enabling us all to have conversations with our residents about why it's important to support development in local communities, not just because people deserve homes and jobs, but because it also enables us to protect our environment, which is what we're all about. So I hope this motion is supported unanimously. This gives us a good start to build on. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dando. Councillor Warren.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think this is very important, this transparency, because I think the people need to know what they're getting for the money. Because it's not really the developers that pay. They initially stump up the money, but actually the people that pay the SIL are the people that are buying the houses. So they want to know what they're getting for it. So I think it is important. And even myself, I did a little bit of, just built a couple of houses, and there was quite a lot of SIL money. I have no idea where it went. 25% went locally, but who knows? It's probably my fault because I didn't look into it, but I support this fully.
Thank you, Councillor Warren. Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks to Councillor Biddleston for working with Councillor McCabe on some adjustments to the wording of the motion. I think it's really important that we do understand the difference between and the distinctions between the different forms of planning gain. Section 106 is for specific projects named in the planning consent, and SIL is more like a tax on development, which goes into a general pot. The lion's share of tax, 80% of it, the lion's share of that tax, the SIL money, goes into the strategic SIL pot, which is allocated by the council to strategic infrastructure. Both the principles for the allocation and the specific projects are listed in the budget papers every year, and then they're retrospectively reported on every year in the infrastructure funding statement, which includes the Section 106 spend and the neighbourhood SIL allocations, which then go to the parish councils and to the Bath neighbourhood SIL. Just browsing last year's, to answer Councillor Hale on Keynsham, for example, I mean, I recommend you go check the report. It does list some projects in Keynsham. They're not ones I know intimately, but I've just checked the report, and there is, I can see a quick scan of at least £250,000 worth of strategic SIL spend going to Keynsham. So there definitely is money coming back. Please do look at the report. Last year, there was 2.3 million of strategic SIL to allocate, and it included things like the second in 3 annual £500,000 payments for Bath Quays flood defence, and the 20% match funding requirement to unlock the City Regional Sustainable Transport Scheme funds from WECA. So the money is being spent on strategic things, and I know that the demand on both the strategic and neighbourhood SIL funds is unsurprisingly outstripping the money available. So I don't want anybody left with the impression that there's a large pot of money left unallocated or unspent. That is not the case. Nevertheless, I am completely supportive of making sure that SIL and 106 spend is clear and transparent, so I'm very happy to support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Elliott. Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Chair. I really hate to have to correct the young man who's sitting opposite me. 25% of the SIL only goes to those parishes which have a neighbourhood plan. This is why getting a neighbourhood plan together is so important, not only because of the financial gain to the parish, but because it's an expression of what the parish wants to see in planning terms, in terms of green spaces, architectural style and so on, and is the consequence of extensive public consultation. If you have not got a neighbourhood plan, then you only get 15%, and that doesn't always go very far with what the parish may need. I think this motion is excellent in terms of its, what my colleagues have said about the need for transparency and trust. Somehow we need to update our system so that it's not just a piece of A4 paper tied to the nearest lamppost which tells the public that there is a planning application on a nearby site. Sometimes even that is omitted. We don't all spend our free time trawling around the Baines website looking at new planning applications and the Section 106 notices given. You know, it's a strange thing, I can't sing very well anymore, and so I'm going to spare you singing The Bridge Over Troubled Water, but that is what is going through my mind, because the Bridge Over Troubled Water was the bridge that goes from Nelson Ward Drive in Radstock to St Nicholas's School, and there was a delay of 7 years getting that approved, difficult problems solved, and the developer could well have asked for them, would have had every right to ask for the money back. In short, each planning application is always judged on its own merits and what the impact on the community is and what would be the appropriate sill. And I really welcome and support this because those of us who have been trying to get certain developments done in their wards will know how very difficult it can be at times dealing with a developer, and this will very much strengthen what we want to see happen on the ground.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Councillor Guy.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to build on the jolly atmosphere that's in the chamber at the moment, because this type of motion is exactly what should be coming from the opposition. It's a constructive, collaborative look at how the council operates. They've spoken to the administration. We agree with them. We've tweaked it slightly, and hopefully it will improve things for the benefit of everybody. So I thank the opposition for that. And I'm hoping that everybody will support it. It is unfortunate there is sometimes a very small minority in this chamber that use the motion system to score political points. But in this particular case, I would like to put my thanks on record for a very collaborative piece of work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Guy. Councillor Ross.
Thank you very much. I'd like to support this as well. I'm going to back up what Councillor Jackson said about the SIL money only being at 25% for those who have a neighbourhood plan, and there are many villages and parishes which don't have it, so they only get 15%. There needs to be a lot more support for those parishes to create a neighbourhood plan. They take a lot of work, and they're made by unpaid members of the community who are basically looking out for the community and want to do more, but they can take years to create in between everything else that everyone's doing. I feel that this does create a divide between those parishes that obviously have the people who have the skills, the experience and the time to do that from those that don't. Not all parishes are as wealthy as others, and I think that's a really poor kind of thing to be relying on those communities that do have that. So we do need to provide much more support for that. In addition, in terms of Section 106, I am concerned that a lot of villages only get very small bits of development, and therefore Section 106 is very tiny in comparison to what could be achieved across those other parishes and areas that might have large developments which then bring in large amounts of money. And I do wonder whether there is some way of considering strategic 106 agreements that cover areas. I'm not sure if that's something we can look into, but that's just a thought there. Maybe that's something for further discussion. But in short, yes, I do support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Did anybody else want to make a statement on this? No? So I'm going to ask Councillor Biddleston to sum up, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm extremely grateful for the generous thoughts and words on, and it is wonderful for everybody to be sharing similar principles. Councillor Elliott's points were fascinating and informative and part of the education training process that I think we all so badly need. So thank you very much, Chair. That's all I have to say, and I don't know the proper words to end this bit. So
That's fine. Thank you,
move to the
Councillor
vote. Thank you.
So we're now going to move to the vote.
Thank you. That is unanimous. That's 47 in favour. Thank you.
Thank you. We're now going to move on to item 13, the motion from the Lib Dem Group opposing Bristol Airport expansion. And I believe Councillor Dave Harding is going to move that.
Thank you, Chair. Council, Bristol Airport have recently announced plans to expand capacity to 15 million passengers per year by 2040, having in April 23, after a long legal battle, gained planning permission to expand capacity from 10 million to 12 million passengers per year. The opposition to these earlier expansion plans was overwhelming, with all local councils, WECA, and over 80% of the 11,000 plus residents who responded to the consultation objecting. Bristol Airport's current proposals include the creation of over 14,000 extra flights a year, producing hundreds of thousands of tonnes of additional carbon and other nasty emissions, extending the runway for long-haul flights from bigger and noisier aircraft, 1,000 more night flights, an increase of 25% to 5,000 in total, with most of these flights concentrated in the summer months. Council, please note that Bristol Airport already has more nighttime flight breaches than Heathrow. The Climate Change Committee has reported repeatedly that UK aviation has yet to show it is on track to decarbonise. It has also stated that airport expansion should not be considered until a national capacity management framework is in place and unless emissions reductions can actually accommodate the additional demand given the country's legally binding journey to net zero. Please balance this point with the decision to expand Gatwick being expected in the autumn, with the Transport Secretary now minded to approve, the Chancellor announcing that the Government would be supporting runway 3 at Heathrow, and the decision on Luton Airport's application to increase the annual passenger capacity from 18 million to 32 million by 2043, coming this April. Bristol Airport expansion is dependent on ever-increasing car use. Bristol Airport has no access to a dual carriageway, a motorway, or to train routes. It's served by a single-track A road, the A38, and country lanes. That's it. Its mass transit policy, if you can call one that relies mainly on cars, is an ambition to achieve 15% bus usage in the future, based on the current modal share of 12.5%. Their stated ambition is that 12 million of these 15 million passengers will come by private transport. That's 24 million passenger journeys each year, or a staggering average of over 65,750 each and every day, and something that will clearly be even worse in the peak summer months. Currently, I believe, and it's hard to keep up to be honest, there are car parking places for 18,000 plus cars, with 2,000 more coming online very shortly, and then a third multi-storey car park in 26-27 with a further 2,150 spaces. Projecting from Bristol Airport's parking demand study, we can perhaps expect another increase in car parking, approaching perhaps 5,000 parking spaces to accommodate 15 million passengers per year. I'd also like to point out that an estimate of off-site parking, much of it unofficial in summer 2017, was circa 4,800 spaces. And then there's also the existing 2,000 staff car parking spaces on top. It's not unfair to say that the site at Lulsgate Bottom is a massive car park with an airport attached. Speaking parochially, if I may, for a moment, the impact on the Chew Valley of the airport, aside of its pollution and noise, is felt everywhere. Cars speeding along the A368 through Stowey, Sutton, Compton, Martin and Ubley, and on B roads through Chew Magna, the increased volume of traffic causing jams at village pinch points, unofficial parking sites set up in fields, and cars parking outside people's houses at all hours in Chewstoke, for example. I'm sure many of you have similar stories in your wards across Baines. Another increase in passenger numbers will only worsen the way of life for both Baines and North East Somerset residents. Finally, I would like to thank Jackie and Louise for coming, and Steve for coming to speak to Council today and describe the local impact. I urge councillors to support our residents and support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harding. Councillor May, I believe you're going to second this motion.
Chair, thank you. I wish to second the Liberal Democrat motion and hope the full council will be able to support it. I will briefly give 3 reasons, but start by thanking the effective community speakers we've heard this evening, because they represent a large group of the community. First, as the Cabinet Member for Children's Services, I'm always mindful that our future rests with our children. We have a duty to protect them from the long-term impacts of climate change and the immediate damage from air pollution and traffic dangers. Airport growth will lead to increased pollution with all the extra vehicle traffic from the south and east of the country in particular coming through our area. When the airport managers talk about net zero, this is only operations and does not reflect the total emissions, not the air travel nor the travel between home and the airport. There is also the harm from increased night flights, which will affect light pollution, noise and pollution for communities across the whole of Bath and North East Somerset. Secondly, as a councillor who represents the villages along the A37, the official signposted route directs traffic, southern traffic through Farrington Gurney, Temple Cloud, Clutton, Pensford and Whitchurch Village into Bristol. If visitors try to access the airport through the Chew Valley, the route is complex and follows quiet rural lanes unsuitable for such traffic. The additional volumes of traffic will add to the existing congestion and pollution on top of the increasingly noisy flights across the area, which causes community anxieties. The flight paths which expanded night flights and the impact of parking means the effect of the whole of our area. Parish councils are against airport expansion, which is the Parish Council Airport Association we heard this evening, and the Bristol Airport Action Network. And the impacts affect both Baines and North Somerset. The community feelings are highly anti even further expansion of the airport. Third, the Council has put on record its opposition to the airport expansion at least twice recently, in 2019 and 2022. And as Councillor Harding has outlined, the growth now proposed is cumulative of a 50% increase in a short period of time, with usage figures open to challenge in terms of justification of demand. So for these reasons, the impact on children, the climate emergency, the negative impact on all our communities, and being consistent, I support and second this motion. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor May. Councillor Gando.
Thanks, Chair. The Labour Group was proud to move the original resolution that led to this Council objecting to the expansion of Bristol Airport in the first place, and we see no reason to change our position on this proposed additional expansion on top of the one that they controversially got previously. If this Council is to be honest in its intention to declare a climate emergency and then address the consequences of that climate emergency, then we have to be honest with ourselves, with our communities, and with all the people that operate within Bath and North East Somerset, that we are opposed to this development. It is regrettable that successive governments have failed to invest in high-speed rail, which would give a realistic alternative to the vast number of flights that leave Bristol Airport every day to Europe that could be served by high-speed rail. It's only high-speed rail, unfortunately, once you get to Europe. It isn't high-speed rail in order to get to Europe from the UK. And so lots of people see that they have little alternative but to fly either from regional airports or from the main airports in London. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't make a clear statement from this council that we are opposed to the continued expansion of Bristol Airport and the continued problems that it causes to local communities on the route and who are overflown by the route, because it isn't just people travelling by car or by bus or by taxi to the airport, it's also the succession of flights that go over most of Bath and North East Somerset, probably 23 hours a day, circling around, dropping all sorts of wonderful particulates onto our communities. So, once again, we should say enough is enough. We should go back to all the people who have the power to make these decisions to say, do better, we do not support this expansion. And so the Labour Group supports this, and I hope this will be a unanimous statement from this council, as it was previously, almost.
Thank you, Councillor Dando. Councillor Gourley?
You normally hear me speaking in praise of buses. Tonight I'm speaking in praise of trains. Like my predecessor, Councillor Neil Butters, I'm a train enthusiast. I dislike airports and flying, and I'm completely opposed to airport expansion. I used to commute to Oxford daily by train. I'm about to book our third senior interrailing trip in Europe in a year, having just travelled 1,800 miles to southern Spain last month. Breakfast in Paris, lunch in Barcelona, tapas in Seville. What's not to like? I would encourage you all to take the train rather than the plane. In my experience, European trains are fast, cost-effective, reliable and clean. There is a growing network of intercity, cross-border and sleeper trains. Train travel is far more comfortable and less stressful than flying. The views are far better and there's no turbulence. There's enough legroom and space to sleep, relax or work. The city centre stations make your journey far more efficient. You have greater flexibility in catching earlier or later trains. Even UK trains, which are notoriously expensive, are cheaper if you book in advance or use split ticketing. Of course, it does help to have a senior rail pass. Whilst flights appear to be cheaper, not least because of the unfair lower tax on airline fuel, the cost of seating, luggage, priority boarding, transport to the airport back or parking makes it rack up. And then there's all the stress of security checks, the waiting around and the weather delays. But the real train bonus is obviously the significant reduction in carbon emissions compared with flying or even driving. So if you're planning to go to Europe this summer, check out the man in seat 61 for great advice and give yourself and the planet a break by going on a real adventure by train.
Thank you, Councillor Gorey. Councillor Hale?
Thank you, Chair. I don't enjoy flying. In fact, we don't fly anymore, mainly similar sort of reasons. I detest airports and being locked in a tube with God knows who you are sitting next to. Well, other than my wife, of course. My real... And I quite like sitting in the back garden and watching the planes fly over. But very close to my house is Charlton Road in Keynsham. And Charlton Road in Keynsham is now, I would suggest, the de facto missing link of the Avon Ring Road. And currently, we are experiencing an average of 8,000 vehicles a day along Charlton Road. And I would suggest the majority of those are compressed between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. So any enlargement of the airport is only going to drag more people on that through route. If they enlarge the airport, then I hope that this authority would be looking to WECA to actually provide that missing link. And I know that will upset Paul, but to provide the missing link so that traffic is carried directly around the city and away from Keynsham, and I suspect it would even benefit those villages, perhaps not every one of them, but most of those that you mentioned, because the traffic would be taken to the A38. But, as I say, I am more than willing to support the resolution.
Thank you, Councillor Hell. Councillor Sarah Warren.
Yeah. So despite hundreds of Doge firings last month at the US National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration, its website still reports the current concentration of atmospheric carbon dioxide, and this week it stood at 425 parts per million. We know the maximum safe level for human survival and civilization is 350. January was the warmest January on record, and we're edging ever closer to another atmospheric threshold. When we get to 450 parts per million, we can expect an ice-free Earth, leading to catastrophic rise in sea levels. The most recent very clear recommendation of the Government's Climate Change Committee, its independent expert advisory board, is to stop airport expansion without a UK-wide capacity management framework. But unfortunately, the Chancellor has recently announced expansion of London airports. It's a bit disappointing that the Government believes the so-called sustainable airline fuel made from waste oil is the solution. Unfortunately, I think they may have been taken in by the industry, as the Royal Society has found that producing enough so-called sustainable airline fuel to supply the UK, even if flying is only kept at today's levels, would require around half of the UK's agricultural land, or 2.4 to 3.4 times the UK's 2020 renewable wind and solar and electricity generation at a time when we need to electrify much of the rest of the economy. In any case, the industry plans for enormous expansion, so sustainable airline fuel is clearly for the birds. Government also anticipates economic advantages from allowing airports to expand, but I'm afraid they may also be disappointed in this, as independent research shows that economic claims for airport expansion are grossly overstated, and that in our region Bristol Airport provides mainly for outbound leisure travel, translating into economic disbenefits to our domestic and tourism industries. As we've heard, Bristol Airport now plans to expand its operations by around 50% at the expense of local residents, who will suffer from increased traffic at all times of day and night, aircraft noise and pollution. Council, the airport's previous proposed expansion was overwhelmingly opposed by all local councils, the West of England Combined Authority and several local MPs. This is a key issue for our region on which the science is clear, and political allegiance is not relevant. I call on you all to help send a strong, unanimous message to the airport and to government, just as we have done before in Bath and North East Somerset. Bristol Airport is big enough.
Thank you, Councillor Warren. Councillor Hughes.
Thank you. So, as a group, we hold varied opinions on airport expansion projects, both locally and nationally. Since the last review on this topic, several significant developments have emerged, including changes in government and advancements in more environmentally friendly aviation fuels. The proposed expansion of Bristol Airport has sparked both strong opposition and support. The new government has endorsed airport expansion as part of the UK economic growth strategy. Additionally, our region relies heavily on tourism, with Bristol Airport playing a key role in promoting Bath as a destination. We must also consider the environmental impacts. Is it more sustainable for travellers to land in London and drive across southern England, or to fly directly into the West Country? Similarly, should travellers from the West Country and South Wales travel further to London or other UK international airports to reach their destinations? Additionally, we must also assess whether this expansion would provide any meaningful boost to our local economy. Equally important is ensuring that long-haul air travel remains accessible to all through local airports in line with the 2010 Equalities Act, guaranteeing inclusivity for individuals with disabilities. At the same time, large sections of our road network have reached capacity, and valid concerns exist regarding the potential increase in traffic, also increases in pollution and aircraft noise, and whether any effective mitigation measures could be put in place. Ultimately, then, this is a matter of balance, weighing up potential benefits against possible harm. To be able to form an informed opinion, it would be beneficial to have a comprehensive assessment of the facts and the data. To this end, we would suggest that a full report is given to scrutiny and then brought back to this Council.
Thank you, Councillor Hughes. Councillor Waite.
Thank you, Chair. I'm against the Bristol Airport expansion, in particular the huge increase in night flights across our region. There is clear medical evidence that noise at night can cause stress, leading to severe illness and premature death. Professor Charlotte Clark of St George's University, London, has studied the neurological effects of sleep patterns caused by night noise. She states that when you are asleep, your ears don't stop. They record noise and pass the information on to the amygdala, the emotional part of the brain. Though asleep, your heart rate goes up, causing your nervous system to release stress hormones into the bloodstream. This leads to a greater heart rate and blood pressure rises, which in turn leads to heart attacks, strokes, type 2 diabetes and links to dementia. A resident in my ward suffers from fibromyalgia. He told me last week that his condition had become far worse due to the claims to night flights to Bristol Airport. He said that this much more frequent noise has caused him disrupted and disturbed sleep. He now has such a poor sleep pattern and sleep deprivation. His condition has become far worse. He is now unable to work and is also depressed. For some, the consequences of extra night flights to and from Bristol Airport are more than a mild inconvenience. They are a serious mental and physical health matter, leading to sleep disturbance for many, and for some, severe illness and early death. Few things are more important than good health. This dangerous Bristol Airport expansion must be stopped.
Thank you, Councillor Waite. Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Chair. A few years ago, my brother-in-law, a former senior planner in Bradford, thought that he'd struck a major victory when he and the other protesters against the expansion of Leeds Bradford Airport won their appeal against the expansion, and he thought that was it. But I can't remember which Secretary of State it was, because the turnover was so great in the previous government. The Secretary of State overruled the planning inspector, the expansion has gone ahead, and as the previous councillor has just said, it's really bad for your health, the way these flights go over Headingley, right through the night almost, it seems, because the companies don't stick to the limited hours they were set, and I think it will probably be exactly the same with this expansion at Bristol Airport. It seems to me very ironic that the best way to get to Keynsham is to take the airport bus, because it will, if you're disabled, it will bring you into the middle of the town. As previous speakers have said, the infrastructure is terrible to get to the airport and get back. And finally, I think we're much indebted to the public speakers who gave us so much information. Apparently, for every one person coming into the country for tourism, 5 are going out. I must declare, finally, an interest. I come from Scarborough. My favourite holiday place is Lindisfarne in Northumberland, and I think you can't match their beauty. And I would strongly suggest we promote internal home tourism and get people to visit Bath, preferably by coach.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Councillor Tim Warren.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a balancing act, and I did meet the group Lindisfarne, Eleanor, once when I was in Jersey, you know. And I think I flew across, I hate to say. It is a balancing act. I use Bristol Airport, and I'm sure I'm not the only one any of it does. I was in the horse trade at one time, still am a little bit. I used to go to Holland a lot, I used to go to Ireland a lot. I always flew to Holland. Originally, I flew from Heathrow or Gatwick. I can now fly my dude from Bristol. I mostly fly, I guess, I go to Ireland, or did. And it makes life better. I don't use as much diesel, I don't use much going. However, there does come a time when enough is enough. Lockdown, I could sit in my garden, I could do it with birds. It's lovely. No planes. The lady that we bought the place off where I live now came and she said, Tim, how can you bear those planes going over? And I didn't really notice them because they gradually creep up on you. It wasn't until she said that, I think, yeah, you do. And you know, I'm laying in the morning, I got a few sheep, and the sheep are barns, they want feeding, and they'll wake you up. And I was going to swear then, I've got some ducks that decide to go on my fish pond, and they make a hell of a noise, wake me up. You can live with that. All of a sudden, you get a Boeing 747, whatever they are, and it's not quite as pleasant. But I do think, although I'm a user of Bristol Airport, I do think enough's enough now, and it's big enough. You go through the lanes, through the Chew Valley, it is dire, and they're only small lanes, and you get stuck behind a track, that's one thing, and then you're trying to get to the airport, so you're racing, and that's what happens. And I've been there myself, and allow an extra half an hour, and you'll do it then. I know that, so I live there. So I think when it came to 19, I think I can't remember, I don't think I was, funny feeling I abstained, but I will be supporting the motion tonight.
Councillor Box.
Thank you very much, Chair. I just want to speak very briefly, and as you're probably all aware, I'm the ward colleague of Councillor Harding in the Chew Valley, so I'm not going to say anything different. But I do want to mention something about rules and fairness. And I think we can all agree that if there is things in place, then it should be fair that we all play to the same rules. Now, as my job as a councillor, I go to a lot of parish council meetings and I get updates from the airport information. And from what I understand, they have broken their legislation on 1,200 times for night flights in 2023. So 1,200 times they have gone against the rule, which is they shouldn't be doing a night flight for a certain reason. So there's stipulation caveats that say someone had a heart attack, whatever, they can make those landings. So are you telling me 1,200 times there has been an emergency in 2023 that they have to break those rules? So I guess what I'm trying to say is, what makes us think that they will continue to play by any rules that we set for them? Okay, so I don't think we're necessarily dealing with a bunch of people that maybe we want to work with. So please, all the points today have been fantastic. I urge you to support it. I urge you to talk to any colleagues in government to support it, and please consider that.
Thank you, Councillor Box. I'm now going to go back to Councillor Harding to sum it up.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, colleagues. We've heard about the beauties of Lindisfarne, Councillor Warren's ducks, the love of trains, but we've also heard about the dangers or fallacies around some of the evidence regarding carbon neutral airports and the economy and jobs. We've heard about the dangers of emissions, fallacies around sustainable air fuel. We've heard about the problems with night flights and the health impacts that occur. We've heard about the traffic on our roads, the tourism net deficit, and I think Councillor Warren put it perfectly. Enough is enough. If I may make one more comment, I don't believe that scrutiny here is relevant. The science is clear. If people need more information, I would like to refer them to the New Economics Foundation January 25 report, where a lot of things are summarised up there. I'd like to thank everyone for the tone of this debate and move to vote. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're going to move to the vote.
Thank you. That's carried with 44 in favour and 2 abstentions.
Thank you. So we're going to move on to item 14, the Green motion, the Easter Bath deserved a better, etc. So can I ask Councillor Wright to move that, please?
Thank you. Thank you for this evening. Right, hold on. It's just always a bit of a shock to go into this. As we've heard this evening, we've had many speakers come to the chambers, and I would like to thank them for what they've had to say. Thank you to the Cabinet Member for Transport, Councillor Rigby, for attending a public meeting in Lambridge on the east of, about transport on the East of Bath that was held last night, and listening to the many issues that were raised by residents. It was appreciated by the many of those who attended to know that both you and a senior officer were willing to hear their concerns and ideas for improving where they lived. Residents were delighted in knowing that not only were you there, Councillor Rigby, but also the Cabinet Member for Resources and, most importantly, the Leader of Council. The recent open letter by the Leader of Council, which told residents that this administration had listened to their concerns and stopped the Camden Road bus gate, and are now going to re-engage with the community to develop a wider livable neighbourhood plan over a longer time, has been very much welcomed. This motion, as I'm sure you have all read, sets out to ensure that the Leader of Council's open letter to support residents is formalised. I would hope most people would support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wright, and I believe Councillor Hell-Jess is going to second that.
Thank you, Chair. I'm pleased to second this motion. A livable neighbourhood can work, but only if it's properly planned, fully consulted on and designed in collaboration with the community. A community-led livable neighbourhood shaped with input from residents, businesses and officers would have a far greater chance of success. So we're looking forward to working with officers and fellow councillors to improve residents' lives. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hurst.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I'd like to take the opportunity to highlight some of the key issues around the Baines Livable Neighbourhood Strategy. Baines has developed strategies to set out how we improve our neighbourhoods. These policies include the low traffic neighbourhoods and the residents' parking schemes, and they are all on the Council website to review. The low traffic neighbourhood strategy was agreed back in 2020 by Cabinet and sets out the transformational step change required if we are serious about responding to the climate emergency, which we've already talked about a lot tonight. Our strategy has clear objectives, including reducing the impact of rat running along unsuitable residential roads while safeguarding access for residents. In 2020, we consulted on the policy. The outcomes were published in December 2020 and demonstrated strong support. 65 to 83% of the people who responded to the consultations supported the different aspects of that strategy. The co-design, the selection of the schemes and the level of community involvement. So Baines has a strong strategic framework for delivering the Livable Neighbourhood programme. I'd secondly like to kind of focus more on some of the details about the current policy and some of its successes. And it has been challenging, and sometimes doing hard things is difficult and you learn as you go. But we've gone through a very detailed process that has been transparent, involving communities from the start. In the early 2021, applications were received. In June 21, a short list of schemes were agreed in line with the approach consulted on. Engagement and co-design with communities took place in 2022. In August 22, the work started on trials. In 2023 and 24, the full business case was developed and submitted to WECA, and it was supported in line with our strong policy framework with the funding that came through from WECA for the 11 schemes that were progressing. And that has a range of innovations, continuous crossings, through traffic restrictions, signal controls, improved access to high streets, zebra crossings and the like. The Lib Dem administration are delivering an exciting transformational range of interventions. We don't just talk, we do, and we learn as we go. So this council has got an evidence-based, thought-through policy. We are following strategic approaches we consulted on. We have followed robust phases of consultation and engagement. We have secured funding from both the Labour, Wecker Mayor and Combined Authority and ultimately the Conservative National Government of the time. The resources, this has enabled resources to flow into Baines to develop these schemes. We're using the national benefit cost ratios. So we've got a good approach and you should stick to our approach and reject the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillors. Councillor Sarah Warren.
Amongst other things, the motion this evening seeks a strategic, fully modelled traffic management plan for Bath. It has recently become so popular for our opposition benches to call loudly for a city circulation plan that I'm looking forward to unanimous support when we bring one forward. Rarely has there been a topic of such violent agreement. Seriously, though, this is a substantial piece of work that takes time, and modelling can never be comprehensive, given the financial and practical constraints within which we operate. There will always be room for our professional officers to exercise their professional judgment. The Greens and their unlikely bedfellows to the right of local politics imagine that having such a document will be a panacea that will magically put to bed all dissent over transport decisions. Everyone will immediately agree to the development of new infrastructure, they think, once they can see the plan. Joking aside, I am not so misty-eyed. Such a plan will provide a useful blueprint to aid understanding and guide investment, but it is not a magic wand and cannot heal many years of deliberately provoked culture war against healthy and environmentally sound transport policy. That is why it's simply not viable, as Green Party councillors sometimes suggest, that having declared a climate emergency and identified transport emissions as the hardest area to tackle, to then halt all work on sustainable transport infrastructure pending completion of a circulation plan. If I understand correctly, the motion also seems to request additional funding through the City Region Sustainable Transport Settlement to progress a new East of Bath livable neighbourhood. To be clear, the money allocated to the East of Bath was spent on extensive consultation and design work on the Camden Road busgate over many years. In line with the wishes of ward councillors, including from the Green Party, a decision has now been taken not to progress that scheme. The Council does not have access to further funding for new designs or consultation on a new scheme for this location at this time, as all the remaining funding we have through CRSTS is now fully committed to other projects in other wards. As part of delivery, not talk, the Liberal Democrats are simultaneously bringing forward short-term solutions at the same time as developing strategies, policies and a pipeline of work for the long term. Our successes include delivery of the first charging clean air zone outside London, which has now ensured nitrogen dioxide below legal limits for 2 consecutive calendar years, protecting the health of our most vulnerable residents. As ever, the Green motion talks a good game, but makes no recommendations that will contribute constructively to our already strong record of delivery on sustainable transport, whilst also proposing actions that run counter to our adopted policy in this area. That's why I'll be voting against.
Thank you, Councillor Warren. Councillor Rigby.
Thank you, Chair. I've themed my objections to this very long motion into 3 sections for the sake of efficiency. Firstly, what the Green Party is attempting to do is circumvent all the processes in place which ensure that allocation of resources is done fairly, even-handedly and in accordance with adopted policy. This is a blatant attempt to queue jump, and I trust we won't get further motions to full council about specific highways interventions. Second, what they are asking is contrary to our adopted policy. This is particularly peculiar as the movers of the motion include an architect of this policy. Thirdly, on reading the pages in detail, what they are proposing, if adopted widely, would serve to ensure that no environmentally friendly transport intervention ever happens. There has to be some sense of proportion in how much work is done before any intervention and according to its size. Consultation needs to be robust and proportionate. There are those who genuinely wish to stop the Council from delivering livable neighbourhoods and argue the case for retaining car dominance. There are others who have specific comments on individual schemes, which we listen to, and where possible we incorporate into them. But there are others who wish to stop the delivery of Livable Neighbourhoods programme by saying in words that they are in favour of them, but by their actions objecting to each and every one. Or, as in this motion, putting an unattainably high barrier in costs and evidence required to justify any intervention that's going in on a trial basis. The Lib Dems are committed both in words and actions to making our communities safer and healthier. And of course, by so doing, we agree with the Greens about protecting our planet. However, I'm not certain on what planet it's possible to model all eventualities, create a master plan, do extensive community engagement, such that it would result in everyone agreeing with what is being proposed. I'm sure our neighbouring Green Authority in Bristol would love to know the secret to this as well. Their East Bristol scheme has been held out as an exemplar of how to consult by national authorities. However, currently they're installing the interventions at 3 o'clock in the morning with a massive police presence protecting their officers. There will be an attempt to spin any objection to this motion as not caring about the East of Bath traffic problems. Far from it. I draw your attention to the front page of the Chronicle last week, heralding the victory for residents in the M4 to South Coast study and expressing the delight of our council for achieving this. Rather than lobbying against schemes which are designed to lower pollution, address congestion, protect our heritage and aid our residents, it would be better to have been given support to deliver this outcome. There is no other single intervention which will have this positive impact on this area. For these major reasons identified above, the Lib Dems will be voting against this motion.
Thank you. Councillor Mansell.
Thank you. We've had a very interesting discussion tonight on what seems like to be very varied motions, but actually they're quite linked together. First of all, the development that we have going on across Bath and North East Somerset and the SIL money, Section 106 money, about the airport and the transport infrastructure or the lack of it. And now here we are with focusing on the eastern side of Bath. And what concerns the Labour group is the focus just on Bath, and it's what I get mainly from residents. Everything happens in Bath, it doesn't happen out here. And we've got a particular situation with traffic coming in and out of Bath. There's got more and more house building, and we've got no infrastructure to support it. So it's good to hear Mandarin, it's good to hear Councillor Warren talking about having plans and strategies. What I don't see large is we don't have the joined-up thinking and we don't have the joined-up strategies. And it's really concerning that we need to start thinking things in a much bigger way. I mean, if you go back to the times when they reorganised the railways, when Marples, who owned a trucking company, by the way, decided he was going to get rid of most of the railways. How fabulous it would have been if we could have got in and out of Radstock on a train now. It's just not there. And nobody's thinking about that anymore. So I'm getting tired and I'm rambling, so I'll shut up. But I think we do need to have a bit more strategic thinking, and that includes not just the east of Bath, but Bath and North East Somerset as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mansell. Can I ask Councillor Wright to sum it up, please?
Thank you very much for your comments, Councillor Mansell, about joined-up thinking and joined-up strategies. As ward councillors for Lambridge, Councillor Helgers and myself were in no way consulted on the Camden bus gate, and the response from Lib Dem members, it was that this consultation was robust and proportionate, and that everybody that needed to be was involved. However, what we found was that a bus gate for buses that don't exist at all was going to be put next to a health centre with 14,000 attendants, members, patients, in a space on a very high hill next to a very steep drop where the poorest people in our community live, and that is where the new traffic was going to be sent.
My husband was born and brought up in Bath and is now a man in his 60s. And when I told him about this proposal, he just laughed out loud and was aghast. And as was everybody else that I was stopped and spoken to in my community. There was no one and everyone from every walk of life, every type of social and economic background who spoke to me about their horror of this bus gate. And more than that, they spoke to me about the lack of integrity of this council to be open and honest about what they were doing, how they were doing that, and who they were doing that to. And the reason for us to put forward this motion to you this evening is that many people across the community, not just now in the east of Bath, but feel that this administration are not listening to them and they want to have better. So I am really disappointed to hear that you have also already actively decided to vote against this. It seems a great shame when 3 of you were very happy to speak and hear members of residents last night in that area. And when we go back to them and actually say, well, no, there's no money, there's no forward thinking, there's no way to take this forward, because essentially what we did was purposely stop it, because what was being delivered was brilliant, will upset many in this community. The East of Bath, we know, was put into the prioritisation report because it was seen to be important, but too complex for that stage. Yet a bus gate was suddenly decided after a consultation that didn't even really have it in it. And we are still perplexed in that community by why that decision was made, who made it and how it was made, and how much money has been spent. And many people don't feel that any of their answers have been given. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. We're now going to move to the vote. Okay, we've got 2 people that still haven't voted.
If you voted, if you want to try and announce the result.
Okay, thanks, Jo.
Yes, that is 33 against, 6 abstentions and 4 in favour. Thank you. So that's lost.
Thank you. We're now going to move on to item 16, exclusion of the public. So all I need is a show of hands for the councillors here to agree to exclude the public. Thank you. Thank you. So may I ask members of the public to leave the council chamber, please?